Christmas of 2016 was the most horrifying and worst day of my life. My cousin was hosting a huge house party, really a Christmas party to celebrate the holiday on Christmas Eve. All of his friends, some of my friends, and almost the whole family were there. It was the biggest and most insane party I've ever seen. We were all above 21, with the exception of a few kids, so a lot of us were just drinking our asses off and becoming more drunk. There were so many of us just yelling and constantly crashing into things, and others were already passed out on the couches. I went upstairs to play video games with some of my friends, and then I got more drunk while playing. So drunk, I had to stop on one of my friend's recommendations. I personally was so drunk I didn't realize this random girl was sitting in the living room who I didn't know. I eventually did realize after I sobered up the next morning. I do remember her walking up to me and telling me things I don't remember at all. But whatever she did tell me led to her grabbing my arm and pulling me outside the house toward a white van. I got in the passenger seat and she got in the driver's seat. I passed out in the van a few minutes after getting in. I woke up to find myself in the van, but on an unfamiliar road. I asked her where are we going. She told me that we were going to her house because she wanted to spend the night with me. I looked through the back window and saw my cousin's BMW tailing behind us. I quickly realized what was happening and asked the girl to pull over. And I told her that I had to throw up. I jumped outside the van and ran to my cousin's car. I made sure to take a picture of the girl's van to get the license plate before getting in. We both sped away and my cousin explained everything. He said he wanted me to join him for a drinking session in his backyard with some of his friends, so he went looking for me. When the sister told him that I walked out with some random girl, he ran outside and saw a white van taking off with me in the passenger seat, passed out. So he got in his BMW and started tailing the van. The fact that this happened to me and the assumed safety of my cousin's house party, and that it actually worked on me, a 23-year-old guy, is what scares me the most. We called the police and showed them the picture of the van's license plate I took. They tracked the van to some abandoned subway station. 5 cops went there and my cousin and I followed. We waited outside the station entrance and the officers went inside. Only 10 minutes later, the officers came out with the girl and 3 other large men in cuffs. They placed them in the cars, and 1 officer searched the white van, and the other 4 searched the whole station. What they found still disturbs me to this day. In the van, they found a bloody axe, chains, and duct tape. In the station, they found 4 bodies and 7 kidnapped young adults. Those 2 men were the killers. I still wonder to this day, where would I be now if my cousin had not saved me? I remember this was a few days into summer break. I was going away to Florida to be with my grandpa the week following, so my friends and I decided to hang out until it was time for me to leave. It was about 5 of us, 3 girls, 2 boys. For this story, I'll call them Miguel, Denise, Maria, and Eric. Miguel and Denise were twins, and the oldest of us, being 15. Maria and Eric were both 14, while I was the youngest at the time, being 12. They babied me a lot since I was the only one still in middle school, while the others were freshmen in high school. I remember it was a Thursday afternoon around 3 or 4. We were sitting on Eric's couch, and we've been playing FIFA since school let out around 2:05, and Eric suggested that we go to the park. We all agreed bringing our baseball mitts, bats, and ball. The park was only about 2 blocks away from Eric's backyard. It had a nice sized playground surrounded by climbable trees. There was a softball field just a few yards from the playground, their small graveyard, and a dense patch of woods. Scary thing is that there are 3 small private cemeteries along the side of the park, separated by a metal gate. We tend to ignore it a lot since you can't really see it unless you try to. We start our little game. We played about 2 innings, going into another one with Maria, being the most daring, says with an evil smirk on her face. Let's hop the fence to the graveyard. Miguel and Denise looked at her like she was out of her mind. Miguel asked, "Are you crazy? What if an undertaker is walking around and we get caught?" Maria said, "We're not going to get caught, just play it cool." We all were on the same boat for a few minutes. The sky was starting to get dark at this time. We dropped our bats and gloves and walked over some big sticks to the tall gate. Eric was the first one over being the tallest. Then it was Maria, then Miguel, then Denise. As mentioned before, I was the youngest, and I was the smallest. I was also terrified of heights. When all the others hopped over, I squeezed in through an opening of the bottom of the fence. We started to wander around, and not 5 minutes later, fireflies started to blink around us, and the air got sticky and muggy. The street lights on the block started to come on, though no lights shined in the graveyard, but we still played around catching the bugs and putting them on each other. I, being the daring, idiotic kid I was, I would do front flips off the gravestones. I know it was wrong, but we were considered troublemakers in our neighborhood. We laughed and joked around until Maria suddenly stopped. "Look," she says. Out in the far distance behind a big tree was something protruding from a small pile of leaves. It looked too weird to be a stick or an old log. I glanced at my friends, seeing the curiosity on their faces. Maria starts toward the mysterious object with determination in her steps. We stayed behind, letting the girl explore. As she got closer, I could feel my nerves suddenly getting bad. Like something was wrong about the whole situation. Everyone watched as she slows a bit, then stops abruptly right in front of the tree. She stays still for a few seconds, then proceeded with caution. I look over at my friends, who are also watching attentively. I started telling them that we should go, then all of a sudden, I was suddenly interrupted by a loud, blood-curdling scream coming from Maria. Eric immediately starts running full speed toward her, and we follow right behind him. My adrenaline was so high, I could hear nothing but the faintness of our crunching footsteps and my loud heartbeat. My calves started burning as we approached the still screaming girl. Eric reaches her, looking at what she was looking at, and backed up. His eyes were wide in utter fear while we stared at the scene. The others and I stopped before getting too close, groaning and covering our noses. Once an unbelievable smell reaches our sense. Miguel asks what it was. Eric slowly looks at us, body trembling. No, it's not real, Maria said. Maria had turned her body away from whatever she was staring at, holding her stomach and retching loudly. I pushed past the other kids, keeping my eyes to the ground, and I made my way to the frightened pair. What I saw still haunts me to this day. The smell was stronger, almost making me throw up. But once my eyes processed what I was seeing, it's like I forgot how to function completely. It was the body of a white male, nude with his body mangled. He was laying in an awkward position. I tried my best to describe it, but his leg was bent at an unnatural angle and his arms were broken through the skin, folded behind his head. His face was covered in deep cuts infested with maggots, and his whole body was drenched. I stood frozen, watching as maggots crawled on him and flies buzzing around his corpse. Honestly, I don't remember if I was breathing or not. Before I knew it, I felt a strong tug on my arm. Eric told me that we had to go. I saw that the others had already taken off, Miguel picking up Maria and running with her. Before I could even think to move, Eric does the same to me, throwing me over his shoulder and running as fast as he could. We ran along the gate, finding the opening that I had crawled through earlier. Everyone was already on the other side. The next hour after that was a blur, but I do remember getting home, mute and shaken. No one knows but us. I haven't spoken to any of them in years, and I'm sure this story has been suppressed in their minds like mine. That night gave me nightmares for years, and now at 22, I still remember that smell. This happened in 2019. My aunt, uncle, and my cousin were driving up to my town to have Thanksgiving with me and my family. They arrived 3 days early, so we could just hang out and see each other, since it's been a while. On the first day, I was hanging out with my cousin, who I'll call Anthony, who was 14, and 4 years younger than I, when I got a text from my friend, who I will call Logan, who suggested that we go hang out the night before Thanksgiving at around 2 a.m. Since Anthony and his parents had been staying with us, I invited Anthony to come along, and we snuck out of the house at about 1:30. For a little background, when Logan would invite me to hang out with him at 2 a.m., it would typically mean we would explore an abandoned hospital. We had been in the hospital 3 times and would often go up to the roof and smoke. Anthony and I walked over to Logan's house, which was about 2 miles away, and we got in his car and drove over to the hospital. We would usually sneak in through an open window, but after we saw it was blocked by a large, heavy box, we all had to climb up nearby a tree and leap through one of the windows, which Logan kept open from time to time. I thought it was strange that the window we usually went in was blocked off, but Logan assured me that it was probably some city officials trying to prevent kids like us from getting inside. We used our phone flashlights to navigate Anthony to me and Logan's designated hangout spot, the roof, where we had brought a few folding chairs. We sat down and smoked when Logan told me and Anthony that he was going to invite his girlfriend Lucy over, and that he was going to go downstairs by the front of the hospital and wait. Logan went downstairs, and about 5 minutes later, Anthony realized he forgot his phone, probably because he was high. I looked down from the roof towards the front entrance and didn't see Logan. I suggested that we both go downstairs to give him back his phone, but Anthony wanted to keep smoking, so I went down alone. As soon as I got into the stairwell, I heard heavy footsteps rush up the stairwell. I assumed it was Logan, but when I heard grunts from a runner, I realized that it could not have been Logan. This man's voice sounded a lot deeper than Logan, and why would Logan be running? I immediately ran out of the stairwell and shut the door and pressed against it. There were 3 loud bangs on the door as I heard the stranger yell, "Open the door." He continued to bang and scream. Anthony snapped out of his dazed state and pulled out a switchblade that he carried on him. The door was then open, knocking me on the ground, and that's when I saw the man. He was fat, had horrible breath, and was wearing a stained white t-shirt and tore jeans with deranged red eyes, like Tyrone Bigum's. He got on top of me and started strangling me, telling me it's time to die. About 5 seconds to him choking me, Anthony stabbed the man in the back with his blade. He screamed in agony and let go of me. Anthony grabbed my hand and we ran down the stairs. As we got into the hallway, we heard a psst come from behind us. We shined our flashlights to see Logan in the bathroom, looking extremely pale and had a cut on his arm. We all got into the bathroom and shut off our lights, hiding in the one shared stall. Logan explained to us in a whisper that when he was walking down the hallway, the man emerged from the bathroom and grabbed him, chasing him around the hospital lobby in small circles like a cartoon, until Logan lost him and hid in the bathroom he was in. Directly after Logan finished his story, we heard the man run down the stairs into the hallway, screaming like he was insane. His words were incoherent, but I remember him yelling the words "murder and die." We hid in the bathroom for a little while as the man ran around the room, but he had stopped screaming. We just sat in silence as we heard his footsteps go from hallway to hallway. I whispered to Logan and Anthony that we should call the cops, but they demanded I didn't because we did break into the hospital, which was against the law. Finally, after 1 hour of waiting, at exactly 3:43 a.m., we all heard the bathroom door open as light poured into the room. I shut my phone and I looked over beside Anthony and Logan, who had tears in their eyes. We saw the man's bare feet walk over to one of the sinks, stand there for a couple of moments, and then collapse. We got out of the stall and saw the man was not moving. None of us dared to check and see if this guy was okay. We hauled ass back through the window and ran back to Logan's car, where we saw his girlfriend Lucy waiting. Logan explained everything to her, and to his frustration, she said that she was going to call the police, not wanting to get in trouble. Logan left Lucy and drove me and Anthony back home. We had Thanksgiving the next morning, though me and Anthony were still shaken over the entire thing. Logan didn't answer my text until the night of Black Friday, where he explained that he hasn't heard from Lucy and doesn't know if she called the cops or not. After 1 week, Logan finally told the cops the story. Logan took the blame and admitted to the police that he explored the abandoned building alone, but he didn't tell the police about me and Anthony's involvement. The cops checked out the hospital and found nothing but a destroyed pink iPhone, Lucy's phone. Logan led the police into the bathroom, where a bloody handprint was found on the sink, which he assumed belonged to the man. I don't talk much with Logan anymore. He stopped going to school because of the situation, and according to some of our shared friends, they say Logan once attempted suicide. It's been 1 year since the incident, and with Anthony now coming back to town, we've been texting a lot about the whole situation. Anthony thinks the man is crazy, a crazy homeless man who lives in a hospital. I try not to think about the whole story because it cost me a long-lasting friendship with Logan, who I hope is doing better. So this is a story that happened to me a few days ago. I was at my friend's house for a birthday party. She invited me and 3 other friends, so that was a total of 5 of us. For this story, I'll name them Carrie, Trina, Kalani, and JoJo. Carrie was the one who was throwing the party, and she was turning 13. Trina was also 13, and Kalani was 14, and the youngest, JoJo, was 12. I was the oldest, being 15. I didn't really know Trina and Kalani, but they were cool people. When we got to the party, we sat and talked for a bit, the normal things girls talk about, like boys. We ate food and began to get bored, so we asked Carrie's mom if we could go and walk around the neighborhood, and she agreed. We went to another part of the neighborhood that had a tennis court, and while we were there, we made TikToks. As we got bored, we ended up going back to the other direction of Carrie's house and saw that the end of the street had a house that had police tape over the trees. It also had a for sale sign, so we thought that there was no one living there at the time. So we came to the conclusion that it was abandoned. The house also had a lock on the door. We thought of this crazy idea to go up to the door to see if we could pick the lock and get inside so we could explore. The house had a new window on the left side of the door. It was tall enough to look out through to see if someone was at your house. They told me and JoJo to go up to the door to see because we were the only ones who would accept any dare. As we began to go up to the door, I stated to JoJo that I was afraid of doing this because of the thought of getting in trouble. Even though I was really brave, I was also nervous but still did it because I didn't want to disappoint the others. She had said something I can't quite remember, and after that I remember saying, "What if we go up to the door and there's someone standing at the window?" And this is the part where I would never understand. As soon as I said that, someone very skinny in a Santa Claus suit started walking up to the window. And I'm not kidding, I mean, as soon as I said that, someone started walking up to the window. This was strange because, although it was getting close to Christmas, it was still in November, and we hadn't even endured Thanksgiving yet. Me and JoJo ran away screaming, and so did everyone else. We told the other girls what had happened, and they asked us what the person looked like. That was the moment where me and JoJo looked at each other and remembered that we didn't see the face on this person. I didn't even remember seeing the hands, but JoJo said the hands were white. We went inside our house just to calm down. And 30 minutes later, we went back outside just to take a look at the house again. And I kid you not, when we got to the window that the blinds were in, it looked as if someone was peeking their head looking at us. The other girls thought it was a sticker, but the blinds were also moving at the same time, so I wasn't sure. We went back into the house just to try to put everything behind us. Later that night, we were playing hide and go seek in the dark blindfolded. And when it was me and JoJo's turn to seek, we both felt that something was off. Kind of like a feeling that someone was watching us, and we couldn't shake that feeling off. The other girls don't believe me and JoJo about what we saw, and they think it was a prank, but I know what we saw, and it will forever be buried in my mind. Why was this person in a Santa Claus suit? Why didn't we see a face? How did they know we were coming? So many questions go through my head just thinking about it. Although this might not be your typical scary true horror story, this was terrifying to experience, and I will never forget it, nor will I ever go to that house again. When I was a little girl, 9 years old or so, I was playing at the school down the street from my house. It was the middle of the summer, and myself and my friend were hanging around watching the boys play street hockey. One of the boys called my name and said a man in the parking lot was looking for me. The parking lot was mostly obscured by the building, but I could see an old 70s style van that hadn't been there earlier. I was walking over to the van when the mother of one of the other kids showed up looking for her son and asked me what I was doing. When I told her someone in the van was looking for me, she took my hand and started to walk with me, and the van pulled out and sped away. My friend's mom walked me home, and I wasn't allowed out of my yard without my parents for the rest of the summer. I was so upset and didn't understand why I was being punished. It was only years later that I understood that I was likely being targeted by some scumbag for who knows what. Thanks, Mrs. Gibson, wherever you are. This story happened 2 years ago when I was 25. I'm a home repairman and I often do work around the wealthy neighborhoods in New Jersey, which is where I live. I used to do some home repairs for a retired rich couple. Their names were Rod and Dorothy. They often went on vacations and allowed their children to rent their summer beach house. But before they would stay there, Rod and Dorothy would hire me to do repairs. This would have been the third time that I fixed the house up. Rod requested that I clean the gutters, fix the chimney, and make sure the beachside furniture would stay dry in the shed in case it rained. Rod and Dorothy allowed me to stay the night in the house in case of the thunderstorm, which had happened once before. I arrived at the beach house around 3 p.m. It took me about 3 hours to do my normal routine when it started pouring rain. Because the roads would often flood, I knew it would be unsafe to drive, so I called Dorothy and told her I would be staying the night. She said that was okay, and that I could help myself to anything in the kitchen. At around 7 a.m., I got hungry and went to the fridge to make myself a sandwich. When I heard the sound of a glass breaking from the living room, I grabbed a butter knife and tiptoed to the living room, where I saw a broken window and a rock on the ground. Rainwater started to pour into the living room. Before I could even react to what just happened, I heard a large pound on the front door. I ran to the door and looked through the peephole and saw a man with long, wet red hair, wearing nothing but shorts and a large, muddy green t-shirt. The man looked deranged and was breathing heavily. For whatever reason, I yelled out to the man, "What do you want?" The man reacted, looking through the peephole. He actually smiled at me, showing his stained brown teeth. The man said in a very deep voice, "Open the door." I screamed, "I'm calling 911. I ran to the house phone in the kitchen and dialed for the police, but the weather interfered with the service, so I couldn't call for help. I ran back to the door and looked in the peephole and saw the man holding a flower pot over his head. I jumped back from the door as the man threw the flower pot at the door, and he screamed like a maniac. I opened the door with the knife in hand and pushed the man down with my shoulder. He fell down the small steps. I held the knife up and yelled, "Get out of here." The man took off running down the road and was laughing like a madman. I went back inside and locked every door and window. After about an hour of panicking, I noticed the storm settled down, so I took the opportunity to call the police, informing them of the situation. The operator sent an officer to the house along with the sketch artist. I gave my description and they left the house. I didn't sleep much that night. Rod and Dorothy sent their oldest son Harry to the house the following morning, so I was off the hook. I got paid an extra $50 for what I experienced, which was a nice bonus, but not worth it. I have no idea who or what that man's intentions were, but I like to think he's locked up somewhere, away from people. This happened to me as a kid, maybe around 2 or 3. My mom and I lived in a cheap single-wide trailer in a real crappy trailer park. I stayed with my aunts overnight a lot because my mom would work graveyard shifts. Anyway, she picked me up from my aunt's house around 7 a.m. one day, and we went back to our trailer. I remember immediately not wanting to go inside, begging to ride my bike, but my exhausted mother just wanted to go to sleep, so we went inside. She laid in bed, and being the annoying toddler that I was, I kept waking my mom up asking to go outside and ride my bike, which we usually kept in my room because if we left it outside, it would get stolen. I told my mom I didn't want to go play in my room, so I asked to lay with her. While we were laying there, for some reason I told my mom that there was someone in my closet and he wanted to hurt me. I don't know why I said it. She got up to show me that no one was there, and when she walked in my room, the folding closet door started to open and it got stuck on something. Turns out, A previously convicted child molester had skipped bail in a new trial, watched my mom's coming and goings for a few days, and broke into our house while she was at work. He took my bike in the closet with him, hoping I would come home looking for it. The only thing that kept him from jumping out attacking my mom was when the spokes got caught in the bottom of the door. Needless to say, we ran like hell out of the house and got in the car and drove away. Unfortunately, the guy got out of the house before the cops showed up. There's really nothing to follow up with. I'm just glad we got away.